I'd like to call to order this February 26th meeting of the Finance Committee of the Parish of Ascension. Ken, would you lead us in the prayer, please? And if you'll remain standing for the pledge, I appreciate it very much.
Let us pray. Father, as we come today, again, we give you thanks for all the blessing you continue to bestow upon us. And during this time in our country where we see so much violence being enacted, we thank you for the protection that you have upon our students and the people of Ascension Parish. And we pray for the families that have suffered loss through the horrific events that have recently happened. We pray for your guidance, oh God. We pray for your wisdom as we do the people's business. And Father, we thank you that as we unite, as even you said so much in your word, that a house divided against itself will not stand. But Father, we thank you that united we can accomplish all. We thank you for the wisdom tonight in doing the people's business. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, all councilmen are present with the exception of Councilman Turner. There will be some modifications to the agenda. The chair would like to request that the council approve the addition of item number 7, the discussion about the Cairo Clinic. Mr. Parrington will be handling that. And there will also be an addition of the Ascension Economic Development Corporation contract. And I believe Kate is here to handle that. Does anyone object to the addition of those two items to the agenda? Hearing no objections, those two items are added. They're going to be 7 and 8. Well, that'd be fine. There'll be 7A and 7B. And I will remember to stick them in there when the time comes. Thank you so much. Okay. Right. I want to remind everyone who's present tonight that we do have public comment period available to anyone who would like to speak on an agenda item. You may come to the front, speak to the secretary, sign either a red or a green card. You'll hand those to the secretary, and you'll be allowed 3 minutes to address any issue that you might care to discuss related to the item on the agenda. Right. At this time, I would like to begin with item number 5. A memorandum of understanding between the Louisiana Department of State, the Office of the Secretary of State, the Ascension Parish Registrar of Voters, and the Ascension Parish Council for the use of the Oak Grove Community Center. Our clerk, Bridget Hanna, who is here tonight, will be our presenter on this, and she is accompanied by, and we welcome to the chamber, Robert Poche, our Registrar of Voters, and Shani Berg, who I understand is a Ascension native and resident, and who works for the Secretary of State's office. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. Good evening. This is a proposal for us to add an early voting site at the Oak Grove Community Center for Prairieville. This would be a joint venture between my office as the Chief Election Officer of the parish and Robert's office as the Registrar of Voters, who is in charge of all the early voting sites.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Randy Cluott, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any questions?
Yes.
Please, Mr. Cluott.
I want to thank y'all for coming and handling this. I know that the last time we heard plenty of comments, not my district, but the people that represent that area about the need and the travel to come. So it seems like a prime area to to open up a voting booth there.
Great.
Robert.
Mr. Poche, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate the kind comments. There's a couple of things in this agreement that I need to make y'all clear on. The first being that when we have early voting there, of course, that's what's going to be at that site, nothing else. And I know y'all have weekend events and things, but you're going to have the scheduled elections, and we can't have anything else there. Secondly, in part of this writing, it says we're going to open that facility for all elections. I would like that changed to where it's at the registrar's discretion. Let me give you an example. I have an election coming up, and it's strictly just a tax election in Donaldsonville. I see no point in opening that, and I would like the discretion as to when we open it. If y'all have any problems with that.
I would leave that up to the council members in that area if they have any issues with that.
No, I think that's very reasonable. It
Yes.
seems like a waste of tax dollars if it's a Donaldsonville election.
Yeah, we could have a city election in Gonzales or Sorrento or whatever.
Absolutely.
It would be pointless to open it out there. The other thing is on this cost of this. It's pretty clear, and we tried to itemize all the things that we're going to be required to have, and there's a possibility there's some things that we overlooked or nothing. It would be nothing major. We got all the major stuff in there. I just want to point out that we don't want to be held to that exact dollar. And I can't tell you what it would be because we tried to think of everything.
So can you give us,
Mr. Kulai?
can you give us two things that it may be more than you got in front of you, but what you talked about the community center not being open to anything else while you're having the early voting there in the elections. So in early voting, how many days are you looking at?
7 days, Saturday through Saturday.
Good deal. So that's just for the public to know that
Or
may want to
Tuesday to
use that.
Tuesday if it's a federal election.
If it's a federal election, it'll start on Tuesday.
Yeah. And what kind of cost are you looking at?
Total cost? You have that total cost?
So what you have, I think, attached is the cost that was given to us by the Secretary of State's office. They have several of these additional sites around the state. I suggested that we start off with the small site, which is, it's not as expensive as the large site, but I wouldn't want us to start with too much. We can always add if we need to. I have offered my staff to assist for the early voting. And I think that's going to cut the cost considerably because we won't need but maybe one or two commissioners. And I'm going to also help Robert on his side. He doesn't have near the staff, of course, that I have. So I'm able to assist with that. So other than this, I think, Shaney, I don't know if you want to speak about that. I don't know what other costs would be incurred this year. And I think y'all see that as far as the machines, they're in the process of looking at new voting machines. So this year, if we go into this and get it for the fall election, they will give us the machines that they presently have, so that will not be a cost. But next year, if the new machines come in by next year or whenever they come in, there will be a cost for the machines. I don't think they'll be as expensive as the ones now because they're looking at much smaller machines, but I can't give you an exact price on that right now. So what you have right there, the $6,400 approximately, does not include voting machines that we may have to buy, or we will have to buy when the new ones come in.
Or any equipment replacement.
Yeah, any replacement equipment or anything. But this is, I think, this is the major cost that would be associated. I'm not sure what else, Robert, but
Yeah,
I think he just wants to make sure in case something comes up that.
It could be, you know.
I mean, basically, I just want the public to know. You're looking at
Absolutely.
about $6,000. And then,
Yes.
Then
To get started.
on the new machines, that if you had to buy them anyway.
That's correct.
you know,
But
that-
this year, we won't incur that cost.
Thank you.
For the
So we have a,
For the personnel, y'all gotta realize that, the staff that I normally have working here, one of my permanent members will have to be at the new site, meaning that I will need some additional people. So, thankfully, we have the clerk volunteering some people, but should we need some more, the cost for the commissioners is $100 per day.
Councilman
And-
Satterley.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
that's
Shaney
okay.
just mentioned that the Secretary of State will be there to make sure we get started and any other help that we need. I'm sorry.
That's fine, Bridget. Robert, The 7 days you mentioned save a federal election, so those would be the same 7 days that currently Prairieville voters, such as myself, I'm always an early voter, would automatically go to the polls and come up here to the Gonzales Courthouse, except we would now be at Oak Grove.
You would have that option, sir.
Okay, well, we could, either place then.
Either-
Okay, for
all
the
three
record.
places, either of
That's
the
good.
three.
And are we going to, and I don't know who we are, since we have 3 entities involved tonight, going to advertise this, and if so, how? To the voters?
Should it pass, it will be advertised.
Well, I'm making that assumption.
Okay.
So thanks for the clarification.
Yes.
And so, is there any
We'll-
plans for
we'll
that?
put
Like
the
who's going to do
notification out in the
it?
parish, and we would hope that Channel 21 would carry this all the time also.
But we'll be able to do all this in-house with no additional cost.
Right.
So the council's not going to get a surprise bill for $30,000, $40,000 to let the
No,
public
sir.
outreach.
No, sir. It may be the cost of putting an ad in the paper or something of that nature. That's the, the biggest amount.
Thank you very much.
That's mandatory.
Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move along to item number 6. We have guests tonight in the chambers for item number 6. This is for information only. There will be no vote taken this evening. And so I would invite Kate to come up and introduce this proposed project, and then bring up any members of the team that is here to speak with us tonight up and introduce them likewise.
Well, I don't know when that's.
Good evening. All right, so I'm here to introduce Project Reflection, which is an economic development project that we've been working on for close to 3 years now with a local manufacturer that's considering an expansion project in Geismar. This expansion would add 25 new permanent full-time positions at an average wage of $90,000 per year. And it would be somewhere between $1 billion and $1.6 billion in capital investment. We're really early in the process of introducing this project. Basically, they are looking at making a final decision next year. So we are trying to factor in early on what they would be eligible for through the industrial tax exemption program. So that way, as they're progressing in their decision-making process, they would have that number to input into the sheet, so that when they're doing their comparative analysis between project locations, they can actually have a better idea of how to factor in what their costs are going to be for this potential project in all of the different competitive regions. So AEDC's Board of Directors has voted to push this program through at the full industrial tax exemption program, but we are still having discussions about what that would look like at every elected official. So that is the recommendation, which is just the recommendation coming from our organization at this time. The project is here tonight and has a presentation that they put together, and we were just working to get it queued up on the screen for all of you. So they're going to get into more of the details of the economic impacts and who they are and what this project is about.
Thank you very much. Welcome to this team, and thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. If you'll please introduce yourselves and your roles with the corporation, and then proceed.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Glenn Fontenot. I'm the plant manager with Methanex here at Geismar.
Good afternoon. My name is Greta Gordon. I'm the finance manager for Methanex Geismar.
Good evening. I'm Meg Mahoney. I am manager of stakeholder relations at Methanex.
Well, thank you so much for taking time in your busy agenda to squeeze us in to let us tell you a little bit about our project. I think Kate described it very well why we're here. Just a little bit of background. You know, we are one of the many plants that you have in the area. We've been here since we started in 2012, but started up our plants in 2015. The only product that we make at Methanex is methanol, and the good news is the business is good, and the demand for our product is growing. So in spite of us just starting up our 2 plants in just 3 years ago, the market is requiring that another plant be added by Methanex to maintain our market share. So the company is in the process of deciding where's the next best place to add additional capacity. We have operating locations all over the world, so we look first to integrate those into one of our existing operations. So are we going to have this?
There you go.
There it is. All right, perfect. And then how do I advance the slides? Who's running the slideshow? Okay. So yeah, what we want to just tell you a little bit about Methanex, if you aren't familiar with our company. Talk about what the impact has been so far from our operations here in Ascension Parish. Tell you a little bit about the potential project that we have here for Ascension, and then thank you, sir. And then talk about this, what the impact of this project would be. So Methanex is a company headquartered in Vancouver, in British Columbia, Canada. We have about 1,300 employees worldwide. We're a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ stock exchange. Just to give you a feel, we produced over 8 million tons of methanol. We're the largest producer in the world, and we sold over 10.5 million tons. As I mentioned, we have a global footprint. We have 6 production facilities. We have one in Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. That's just north of the Montana-Canada border. We have 2 operating trains in Trinidad, 2 in Chile, 1 large plant in Egypt, 3 plants in New Zealand, and then our 2 newest plants are the 2 here in Geismar. A total production capacity from all of those plants of just under 10 million tons of production. Again, just to give you a feel for our global footprint, not only do we have the 6 manufacturing locations across the globe, we have marketing and logistics offices in every continent, with a large concentration over in Asia. China is where half of the methanol produced in the world is consumed. But we also have shipping terminals all across the globe, one of which is here in Geismar. But what we do is we produce large volumes from our plants. We load them into large ships, like 20 to 40,000 tons, send those off to locations, Europe, Asia, and then offload those into terminals where they're shipped to local customers by rail car or truck or barge. Just to give you a feel for why we produce methanol here, and methanol is really a very versatile chemical with a lot of different ultimate consumer uses, not necessarily as methanol, but ultimately as a downstream product. If you look at this wheel that has the traditional uses up at the top, it's about 55% of the total demand of methanol. It goes into really some traditional building products, really products that are around us: paint, caulks, adhesives, drinking water bottles are made from methanol, foams, and the chairs that you're sitting in are made from methanol. So those have been long-term use for methanol for many, many decades. A recent utilization of methanol is in the energy and plastics market. So scientists have figured out how to make energy, like things very similar to ethanol, but we produce methanol. It does the same thing in a fuel, increases the environmental aspects of it. And then also there's a way to make plastics like PVC that we buy every day. Traditionally, those were always made from crude oil products. Now there's a competitive way from natural gas through methanol. So that demand is what's growing very fast. That's why we have our 2 plants here in Geismar, and that's why Methanex is looking at another plant. Almost all of that is in China, the use as a fuel or as plastics. Just want to talk a little bit about, what responsible care means to us. I know you hear about environmental health and safety performance by companies here, all the different plants here. At Methanex, we call it responsible care, and that's really the core of everything that we do. We consider all the safety aspects for our employees, for the community, what the impact is on the environment. And we take that's the highest level of scrutiny in our plant, in our whole company, starting with our CEO on down. And, you know, we want to believe that we've become very involved in this community. It's a very easy community to become involved in. We really appreciate the welcome that we've gotten from day one back in 2012. I see a lot of familiar faces here from the very beginning. So it's been it's been a great relationship, I think. It's been a good fit for a company like Methanex with a parish like Ascension. In addition to, you know, making sure that we safely produce our product and ship our product, what we call a category under responsible care is social responsibility, and that's really what our involvement and contribution to this community is. So Meg's going to talk about a few things that we do here in the community.
Good evening. Thank you. Just to speak a little bit about our social responsibility efforts, as Glenn mentioned, responsible care is our ethic that guides all of our environmental health and safety actions and attitudes, but part of that is our social responsibility, and we take that very seriously. And so we've been thrilled to become an active member of the Ascension Parish industrial community. We're active on our community advisory panel. Some of you may have been to a meeting of our CAP. We meet 6 times a year, and that's a proactive opportunity for industry and community members to come together, for us to give updates about what's happening at our facilities, and for them to bring any concerns or questions about things going on in the community to us. In 2017, from our social responsibility efforts, we supported over 50 community organizations in the parish and the broader region, and donated over $188,000 to various organizations in the community. We also had employees volunteering over 2,000 hours. And keep in mind, we've got some very, very large facilities in this area. We are not one. We have 165 employees. So that's a good number. And our employees love getting out in the community and participating in events that support the broader community. This year we expanded. Many of you are probably familiar with payroll giving campaigns. We've had a United Way payroll giving campaign, and this year we, based upon feedback from employees as well as questions from some organizations, we expanded that to include some additional payroll giving options. And so we branded that Methanex Gives. That's our payroll giving campaign. And our employees were very generous in their giving this year. And so I think between employee giving and company match, just from that one campaign, we're already at over $125,000 committed for 2018. So we're well on our way to surpassing our giving level of 2017. But that allowed us to support the Greater Baton Rouge Cancer Services, Capital Area United Way, St. Jude, and the Ascension Veterans Post, those choices were based upon feedback from our employees. Another exciting piece of our social responsibility effort is currently underway, and that is our scholarship program, which we're launching. We'll be offering 2 scholarships at each of the 4 public high schools, one for a student attending a 4-year college or university valued at $2,500, and one for a student attending a 2-year college, and that's valued at $1,000. So we're in the process right now of receiving those applications, and if any of you know high school students who are seniors looking to go to school to further their education, please tell them to apply within the next week. We're still taking applications. So again, we've very much enjoyed becoming part of this parish. It's been great to get to know the broader Ascension Parish community, and then as we moved out to our site, to get to know our Geismar neighbors as well. So we hope to have the parish be a better parish because of our efforts in it, and so that's all part of our social responsibility ethic. With that, I'm going to ask Greta to talk a little bit about our financial impact of our existing operations.
Yeah, just to give you a quick overview of what has happened since we've been here financially. So during our construction, we had over 1,500 plus construction workers over a 3-year period. And the total cost that was spent to build our Geismar 1 and Geismar 2 plant was approximately $1.4 billion. So for the first 3 years, we spent quite a bit of money here in the parish. So once the plants were up and running, Geismar manufacturing operations, we have 168 jobs on site. and the annual base salary. And I want to just emphasize that this is base. That does not include bonus, and it does not include overtime. If you include those numbers, that number jumps up quite a bit. So the base salary is starting at $80,000, and that's the average across the site. An annual spend that we spend in the parish, the least amount is about $14 million a year, up to $25 million, and our annual reinvestments that we spend in the business is about $10 to $25 million, and that's depending on if we have, say, like a turnaround, which we haven't had yet. But a turnaround is where we, would spend up to the $25 million reinvesting back into our business.
So, I mentioned, started out that Methanex is looking for where do we grow our company, what region do we invest in, and the good news is that North America is really a good place to do business. It's a good place to make methanol, primarily due to favorable natural gas prices, which is our raw material, in addition to having mature business industries here that are very familiar with how we do business, good workforce here in Ascension Parish. So, we have two plants in North America, Methanex does. One obviously is the two-train operation we have here at Geismar, and then the other plant that we have in Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. So those are our considerations now when we're looking at probably a 1.75 million metric ton per year plant here in Geismar, or somewhere in the range of 1.3 to 1.7 million metric tons over in Canada. Just to give you a feel for if we would build that third plant here, this site in Ascension Parish would be our largest production facility in Methanex and among the top handful of Methanex facilities across the world. So it becomes really a major player in the methanol industry. Just want to give you all a feel for the comparison of the two projects that we're evaluating, the one here and the one in Canada. As I mentioned, the plant here would be 1.75 million tons per year. In Canada, 1.3 to 1.7, somewhere in that range. The biggest factor is natural gas pricing. So we have very favorable pricing here, somewhere currently around $3 per million BTUs. In Alberta, the price is actually about half of that. So that is by far the largest component of the cost to make a ton of product is natural gas. It's orders of magnitude higher than even the people cost that run the plants. As far as incentives, we know what we've had historically here with primarily with the ITEP, and we all know that that's changed over the last couple of years, and I think we're all learning how to navigate through that process, and it's created its own set of challenges. So, we know what those are, but we're needing to understand what that input is into the Ascension Parish, Louisiana project. So that's why we're here, and that's what we're looking for. It's an economic model that we get all the inputs and outputs, and one of those is the incentives that we would be offered here in Geismar versus what would be offered in Canada. In Alberta, they've gotten the message that their competition for these very good economic engine plants that employ a lot of people, spend a lot of money in a year, is the Gulf Coast, and they've made that very public and understand what their competition is and what they're offering. Both of these plants would be what we call brownfield. So greenfield is whenever you start from scratch and you build a plant from the ground and the dirt up, the grass up. Brownfield means it's incorporated into an existing facility, which both of these projects would be. I mentioned that the big demand for methanol where it's growing is in Asia Pacific, so both of these plants would produce product that would ultimately get there. In logistics here, we have really some good options. We can ship our product out by, as I mentioned, big ships or barges or trucks or rail car, even pipeline. Over in Canada, it's by rail only from the plant in Medicine Hat. And then just want to mention sustainability, which is the same for both plants. You see all of these plants in the area. We don't put them up for 10 or 12 years. They're installed to run for a minimum 30, 40, 50 years. Some of the plants in the Geismar area, as you all know, were started up in the 60s and maybe even earlier than that in some cases. So we certainly would plan to be here for the long haul. Just to give you a feel for the timing, if this project would go to fruition, We are now in, it's called BEP. It's the first stage of engineering. It's really a feasibility evaluation to make sure we could get natural gas to our plant and get our product out and have land and know what kind of design we would have. We're working on that through the middle of this year. When that completes in the middle of this year, that would go before our board of directors and our executive officers, and they would decide, do we go to the next step of engineering, which is, quite a bit more extensive. That would last another year. So at that point, middle of this year is, when we need that input of what the total economics are for our project. So that's where that timing fits in. So just progressing that along to completion, the next phase of engineering would take about a year. So that would take us to middle of 2019. If the market's looking good and the project's still favorable, it would be submitted to our board of directors for what we call final investment decision, FID. And assuming that would be approved, it's about 3 years from approval to startup of the plant. So, we're looking all the way into 2022 to make it operational, with major construction going on between 2019 and 2022.
So now we get to talk about the impact of the project from a financial aspect. So the project assumptions, we're being very conservative because this is the very first one such a big project coming to the parish. And so we're estimating about 25 permanent jobs. And of course, our CapEx, because we're so early on, we're providing a range, and that ranges from $1 billion to $1.6 billion. And that's going to happen over a 3-year construction period. Now, when we look at the numbers, the overall direct impact to the parish over, say, a 30-year period, like Glenn said, when we come on site, we don't come in and just for 10 years, 12 years, and then we're gone. I mean, this is sustainable long term. And that amount is bringing about $148 million to $237 million to the parish. And then when you look at what does that do for the government, Ascension Parish government, what does that number looks like? That is $42.4 million to $68.2 million. $68.2 million, and then, of course, the ITEP exemption over that same period is $22 million if it's $1 billion, and if it's 1.6 up to $36.4 billion. So what we want to do then is just do a further breakdown to talk about what does those numbers look like during the construction period, then during like the first 5 years of operations, and then from there throughout. So during the construction period, there's about $11.1 million in sales tax to be collected if we spend just $1 billion in CapEx. And of course, we spend $1.6 billion, that's $18.2 million in sales tax over that 3-year period. Now, that's just during construction. And so then the next 5 years, once the plant's up and running, there's an additional $2.5 million in sales tax collected, plus indirect benefits. There's no way, there's a lot of benefits from the contractors that will be coming on site, still buying material. We were not able to get an indirect benefit calculation, but that number should be pretty significant. And we worked with, quite a few people to see if we could model the indirect benefits, but no one has done that yet because this is a new requirement from the governor's executive order. So we are not able to provide a number for the indirect benefits. But of course, over that 5-year period of operations, $2.5 million. And then from 2028 to 2030, that's the first years you start collecting property tax, years 6, 7, and 8. There'll be a $1.5 million in property tax you collect if the capital expenditure is $1 billion, and if it's $1.6 billion, it's $2.5 million in property tax the Ascension Parish government will collect. And then from there, once we're up and running, 100% property tax paid, $28.2 million in property tax to be collected. And that number is as high as $2.1 million annually. And then, once you get to a certain period within your years, the asset years, it starts leveling off. And that's going to be about $1.1 million. And I think that's like year 15 or so, where we start paying $1.1 million. But it can get up as high as $2.1 million. And that's only if we're spending $1 billion CapEx. Looking at the $1.6 billion scenario, again, that's $45.1 million collected in property tax starting in year 9 through 30, and then we're paying as much as $3.4 million annually until the asset is fully depreciated, and then we start paying $1.8 million annually. I think that's it. So we're ready for questions.
Mr.
got a question.
I got you. Mr. Dawson?
Thank you. I had, I don't know, well, I guess we lost that. But I had a couple of questions about the numbers. See, 11 million as sales tax, is that just the 1 cent?
Yes, that is. That's just for the Ascension Parish government, the 11.1 million.
So it's the 1
So
cent. So
it's,
we also
no,
have,
It is, let me tell you exactly what that number is. I actually brought that. So the tax for the parish is, it's 2 cents. So 1
it's
cent for the
11
parish, and
million
then
for 2 cents?
it's on, no, so it's parish, 1 cent, drainage is a half a cent, and fire protection is a half a cent. That's the
That's what I'm
11
saying.
million.
What did you calculate the 11 million on? 1
Oh.
cent or 2 cents?
2.
So that doesn't correspond, Kate, what we have. That's half of what we have.
Yes, so we estimated based on what we thought was gonna be taxable expenditures.
Is that right, Kate?
Prior to construction,
Right.
So we got just a $10 million error here.
Well, it's not an error. So Kate and I worked very closely together. We started looking back. I had to talk to our project guy who's in corporate to see exactly how much of those costs was really going to be based on, G1 and G2, what we spent there, what would be taxable,
Okay.
subject to sales tax, and that's the number we calculated. So we wanted to be more conservative and not come in with a high number. We wanted to be conservative. So that's why we lowered it from the 800,000 Kate had to what we're calling taxable is $600,000, about 600,000 on
600 million.
600 million, sorry, 600 million on $1 billion spend.
I don't know.
So that's
Need to
more
reconcile
conservative.
that somewhere. Then also, we've got, I see you say 148 million and generate, I don't have that slide in front of me, but I can't make all those numbers add up to $148 million.
That is over the 30-year period.
It's over 30 years.
Well, but even if you look at the sales tax, again, I can't look at it, but it's like 20, you had it at 20-something million, doesn't it?
So I can give you the breakdown. You have, that's the sales tax as well now.
Put the slide back.
Could we get back to the
So
slide,
it's-
please? It would be helpful to us if we could get back to the slide that Bill.
So so the overall direct impact of 148 million is a combination of ITEP and projected sales tax. So, I
Okay,
hear
so what,
myself.
there you go. So right here, you have 11 million in sales tax.
That's
you
11
got
million in sales
Another
tax.
2.5 million, then you have 1.5 million,
So-
then you have 28 million.
that $2.5 million is just over the, that's for,
But I know, but you can't get to 148 with those four numbers.
this is my numbers
Yes.
here.
Okay,
So the
hold on,
overall,
hold on. Bill, I believe, sorry, Mr. Dawson, I believe that slide refers to all the taxing entities. This is just the parish. So that refers to the sheriff's office and the school
Okay.
system benefits
Okay,
as well.
so that makes
that's
sense. That makes
the
better
discrepancy.
oh,
why
sorry,
you're
I
not
didn't
seeing it.
understand, yeah.
Okay.
Right, sorry. Yeah, the parish government is 42.4 million to 68.2 million.
Okay. I don't know, Glenn, whether you can tell me this. Give me an order of magnitude on the natural gas. I mean, how many thousand cubic feet do you use in a day or a year? So we're looking at $1.40 a thousand negative on this. So what's the order of magnitude for a year? Do you know?
It's on the order of 150,000 MMBTUs per day. So, yeah, I mean,
A day.
we can provide that number.
Big number.
Yeah, we're a very large natural gas user because
Yeah.
we're converting the natural gas into our product.
Tell me again, 150,000,
Around 150,000.
150,000 million BTUs a day?
Correct.
So it's 150, roughly 200,000 or 300,000 a day is where we're negative on that.
Yep.
Okay.
I guess, Bill, just to give you a quick oversight, if you look at our current operations, which is 2 plants, we spend about $20 million in natural gas cost per month.
Per month?
Per month.
150, well, it'd be, okay. Anyway, it's a big number.
It's a big number.
You know, I'm particularly interested in the responsible care, and that's an important thing for us. So I'm trying to, I don't know, are there some indices on your safety? Is there any of that you have here?
Yeah, sure. We've had a very safe operation so far. We've had, like, for example, the entire year of 2017, no recordable injuries.
Okay.
We've had 2 recordable injuries since we've started our operations in 2000.
So no, just recordable and no lost times?
No, we've had no lost time
Okay.
injuries, and very, very good environmental performance. And methanol plants are not particularly, as chemicals go, it's not. It's relatively less hazardous than many others. It's a good, clean burning fuel. It's used, as I mentioned, as a fuel additive like ethanol is, burns at a low temperature, has much less emissions than other traditional fuels.
So can you give me another, like, going through the Panama Canal, coming out of the Mississippi River, going through the Panama Canal to get to Asia Pacific versus, being directly in the Pacific Ocean, is that a negative impact is that a large negative impact on our location?
I'm not sure the exact differential, because we get our product out in Canada by rail car. So there, you have those logistics, so I'm not able to really give a good comparison. I don't know those numbers myself.
So you don't know which way the advantage is? Is that fair?
I think that my understanding is there's a slight advantage. There is an advantage out of Canada.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure of the magnitude.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to, if you could humor me for a moment. I know you said we weren't going to vote on this tonight, but I'd like for you to consider maybe moving this forward to the full council with no recommendation, perhaps. That way, it might help Mr. Von Onim's schedule if we needed to.
I would certainly consider that. I don't think that's an issue for us. It would save you a meeting if you had to come back, but I also think there are other questions to be asked. I know that Councilman Kluwat and Councilman Satterley and myself, depending on what their questions are, have some questions. So if you'll grant me the opportunity. Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Kluwat.
Well, I'm ready to second if that was a form of a motion.
Well, you want to make that in form of a motion, and then we'll proceed with questions.
I will.
Have a motion?
Move that we move it forward to the full council with no recommendation.
Have a motion and
I'll
a
second that, and I have discussion.
All right, and now we have discussion. Mr. Kluwat.
Thank you, Glenn, Greta, and Meg for coming. Glenn, you talked about responsible care. That's one of the things that was brought up. And as an industry partner and a family partner here in Ascension Parish with the community all around you, in our early days before Methanex came here, our discussions, I can tell you before some of your staff came on board, your corporation, meeting with your CEO, your worldwide CEO, responsible care was up front, and that was important to us. The basis of your industry and what your plant does, and with the clean environment type process that you have, a single line process, and natural gas is your feedstock. So that's what, for people that don't understand it. But I don't know of any reason, anything that Methanex haven't lived up to that your original guys, when we sat in the first meetings back in 2012 to 2013 and getting up in there, that y'all haven't lived up to. And I can tell you this, as an industry partner, that when I've worked in industry, you guys have contributed to our care group, our citizen groups, and worked with the citizens of Geismar area. Because the citizens of Geismar are burdened with about 90% of the plants that we have in the parish. And, those folks have been around for a couple hundred years themselves. And, Glenn, you know, you're not speaking out of school. You've been in industry, and you've been in the community and in the local community. You wasn't shipped in from overseas somewhere, so we appreciate that. You knew what it took to stand in front of people years back and say what y'all were going to do and do what y'all said. We appreciate that. I would, we have a new realm with the ITEP, the governor's orders, and from the state all the way down to local government, we're having to take a second look at things and have to look at things all over. So I just want to impress upon everybody, you'd said that your feasibility, you need some decisions in on what's being offered by mid-2018.
Yes,
And so Kate and her group are working hard, and you know, just keep moving and clarifying the numbers to us as we need the numbers, and I'd appreciate that. Like I said, we appreciate you guys coming to Ascension. Back then, you know, we've had, you know, it was between, it wasn't in Canada, even though you'd had facilities there. It was between Mobile and Corpus Christi, Texas. That was the zone that they were looking for. We're blessed with our Mississippi River and our ports, and we felt like we had an edge then. But we appreciate you working as an industry partner and a community partner and continuing to get more involved. And I seriously appreciate the scholarship program. Continue that and make it grow. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kluwat. It's like I mentioned, it's just been a great fit with Methanex. The personality and I think the values and principles that we have with Ascension Parish. You talked about, you know, the people that we've gotten, all but just a handful of our employees all come from right here.
Right.
And they're very good, you know, good employees who are already doing their job in this industry and take it very seriously. So we're very pleased with the reception that we've gotten and the success that we've had here because of this parish.
Thank you. Mr. Satterley.
Yes, sir. I've actually used your product a good bit in a former life as a college professor in selective solvent partitioning and other types of laboratory techniques. And one thing you might want to put in your slide is most laboratories, including my own back then and still now, the last step after you wash glassware to reuse it is always a methanol rinse. So we use a good bit in the medical sciences. I have a couple of questions this evening, and I realize we're moving this on, so we all need to try to be brief. But Councilman Dawson asked you a little bit about sales tax. How about the ad valorem tax picture? The numbers in your second to last table, I believe it was, does that include just the plant facility expansion that you're proposing, or is it also the numbers that include expected employee housing for the added?
No, so we did not include if the people we hire and then they decide to live in the parish,
right,
what those costs would be. That's one of the indirect benefits that we talked about, that we weren't comfortable presenting it.
So it is in the indirect number?
No, it's not an indirect
Not
number.
any number
No.
you presented?
No,
Okay.
we did not include that.
All right. My next question is a geography question. I'm not very familiar with Red Hat. And we talked.
Medicine Hat? Is it
Yeah,
Medicine-
sorry, Medicine
Medicine
Hat.
Hat, yeah.
You would head to the West Coast, then go by rail to the Asian Pacific Theater. What's the distance from Medicine Hat to the coast?
I don't know.
Because right here,
Glenn, do
you
you-
just got to load it onto a boat, and you do have to go south, as Bill said, I guess, and go through the Panama Canal to get into the Pacific Ocean.
That's right. Yeah, Medicine Hat is located, if you know U.S. geography, it's just north of Montana. So, you know, kind of in the center of our country, so going all the way to the West Coast from there.
So are you sure it would logistically cost less to rail that material that far before you'd put it on a boat or ship?
The rail is more expensive, but the
think it
shipping
would
out
be,
of
yeah.
the west coast of Canada is less expensive.
Less
So
expensive.
that net, I'm really not sure
Okay.
how big
And
that
and
is.
final question, safety is important to all of us. We've already heard two councilmen talk about it. I'll throw my hat in that ring. Have your company, since you built the two facilities in Geismar, had any run-ins with the EPA or any other federal watchdog agency in terms of violations of accidents or?
No, we've not had any run-ins of any kind with the DEQ or the EPA.
That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Johnson?
Madam Chair, just for the record, since this has turned into a voting issue, I'll have to recuse myself from this item on the agenda.
Thank you. I would like to, first to thank you all for coming. I appreciate the transparency that all of you have afforded us and the citizens of Ascension Parish. You have offered us insights into your decision-making process that we have not seen before, and we appreciate that. This decision-making process is something that our citizens need to be aware of and to understand. So thank you for being here. And I only had a question about your approach to local hiring, and I think that was sufficiently answered previously. But if there's anything you'd like to add, I would accept that as an add to that.
Just that, it's our preference to hire people that are local, that don't have to change addresses, that know our industry, know Ascension Parish. And so far, we were very successful at it. It ended up being 97% local hires.
Excellent,
Wow, that's
excellent.
big.
That's a great number. Glad you decided to add to that a little bit. Thank you so much. So I have a motion and a second. Do I hear any objections to moving this forward to the council without recommendation? I have one member of the council abstaining. No objections. Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the time here for the council.
Thank you. Meg, I apologize for giving you the wrong time.
No problem.
I've been ferociously texting to you it wasn't
Sorry to be
6:30,
a
it
little
was
tardy.
6.
Thank you.
You were not. Thank you so much. All right. Now we will move on to item 7, an amendment to the license and services agreement with Tyler Technologies to include general billing module not to exceed $21,000. Brandon, welcome.
Good evening, Finance Committee. This was a module that was listed in the optional column on the original quote that Tyler had provided us. Their sales team had given us a description of what this module was, and it's not exactly what we thought it was. Now that we're in the middle of the implementation, we're finding that we do need the module, so we're just asking
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Councilman Dawson, a second by Councilman Cagnolati. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Get everything you can get out of that system.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 7A, which was added to the agenda, is going to be reported on by Mr. Parrington. It's the Cairo Clinic contract.
Yes, what we're doing is, of course, we're moving forward with the courthouse, and we're beginning surveying and all that. I've been talking with the Cairo Clinic, and I need authority to negotiate their contract to reduce their rent to $1,000, and they will work with us on our exit.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, a second by Councilman Oliver Joseph. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 7B, also added, was the contract for Ascension Economic Development Corporation. Kate, do you have any comment you want to make on that? I see you have board members present, other staff.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Councilman Dawson to approve, a second by Councilman Kluwat. The parish president would like to engage here.
Yes, this has already been approved in the budget, but I wanted to bring to y'all attention that when this was formed in '06, and now in 2017, we have contributed $3,820,515. And I would like to have some discussion this year on reducing it somewhat, because the board had said back at conception that in 5 years they'd be on their own. And as you can see, we have continued in the neighborhood of $320-something thousand a year. So at some time in the future, we will have a discussion on this. Thank you.
Mr. Dawson.
Well, I'd like to comment on that, President Matassa. I've heard this before. We asked people to bring us minutes to show us where that happened. There's nobody been able to bring us minutes. If you have minutes of that, Gonzales Council or Ascension Parish Council, I'd love to see them. Because there's nobody that's been able to bring this to us. I was involved in this for 6 years, and I think the $3 million we just talked about, a project that would bring, whatever the number was, $22 million into Ascension, into the government, just the government, $148 million into Ascension Parish. Now, I'm wondering what's going to happen if we don't have Ascension Economic Development and a company like this wants to locate here. Does anybody know?
You think the plants just started in 2006?
Think what?
In 2006, the plants just started coming in 2006?
Well, I didn't say that.
Well, you just said you wondered what would happen. LED kind of runs the big show anyway, but I'm not saying that they're not.
So let's remember this, LD wants them to locate in Louisiana. They don't care whether they locate in Ascension Parish or not.
That's right.
So,
Anyway,
thank you.
that, I couldn't pass that, I'm sorry, but, you know, I've heard this, for the last 6 or 7 years, and I've never been able to see a set of minutes that says that. Additionally, if you look at economic development corporations all around the United States, they're all funded from public monies.
So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Kluwat, please make your comment.
You had something?
Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, I just want to expand on what Bill talked about. I was involved for 7 years, economic development, serving as liaison on the board. Some early discussion. I started serving in 2008, so economic development was in its younger years on this dollar value, and we've increased the dollar value a little bit since then. But I think it's money well spent. Now, I've sat in some very long discussions on what we would do if we took the 300 grand or so and we would do it. So I don't know what we would do, okay? We talked about LED being on the state level, looking out for the state. We need somebody looking out for the parish. And I believe that Ascension Economic Development has done that. I've heard that same rumor, Bill, that same talk. And we've had that discussion before that nobody can prove that it was written in stone somewhere or whatever. So regardless of that, you know, with all respect to the parish president, there was some talk on the early board about some type of endowment or the major corporations contributing in to work with the board to kind of seed some of the normal functions of economic development, Ascension Economic Development. It's never materialized, and at some point, some of the ways that it was being looked at in the hopes of getting contributing monies from the larger, either large contractors or, you know, engineering firms and things like that, some views, you always look at both sides of the coin. Some views thought at that time that would possibly lead to a conflict of interest. So we believe that the board that we have serving and the people we have serving on Ascension Economic Development are autonomous to a point while they follow all the rules, are autonomous to a point that they can have a clean look and what's best for Ascension Parish. And at this time, I'm not in favor of taking any money from them. Thank you, ma'am.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Lambert?
Yeah, I have. This was brought up several times about when they first presented this economic development to us, that for the first year or two, they needed help. And then they were going to get self-esteem after that. So
Where was it going to come from?
that wasn't brought here in front of us, but that was told to us. And that's probably where Kenny hears that from. And Randy heard, you know, talk of it. I sat here and heard it from some of the board members at the time. So that, it did come about, so it's not just a rumor. It was from the board members, because I was present.
I wish they would have said where they were going to find it.
Well,
It's basically what I was talking about, is that they would find some, you know, either grants type stuff or either some kind of seed monies
Private
coming in
donations or
from people that had a better interest for economic development within the parish, which would be your large contractors, your large engineering firms, and the people that basically will, if you've seen on this last project just brought in front of us, that you're going to have so much that's going to be spent on construction and maintenance and everything else. So, you know, there was one of the board members bless his heart, he's passed away now, that I knew for years. That was one of the things that he constantly talked about and tried to get. But there wasn't any great interest in trying to do that. And then there was, like I said, second discussion on both sides of the coin. Do we get a conflict of interest other than a grant, which is, autonomous?
Mr. Cagnotti?
I echo the sentiments that say that AEDC is one of the best investments this parish can have. And I say that, I've been on the board for the chamber, for the city of Gonzales, and now for the parish. This organization brings a return on our investment like no other in the parish. They said Lamar Dixon's starting to make money. It doesn't compare to the return on our investment that we get with this organization. Do the studies, like Bill said, it's typically government funded, not just in Ascension Parish, but throughout the state and the Gulf Coast for sure. So I'm not opposed to continuing discussions, but I'm heavily in favor of continuing to fund them 100%.
Mr. Joseph?
Yeah. I've been here since 2008, and I heard that discussion too. And the deal was, when he went back, we was given so much money, and then we did like a 20% cut in the funding a couple of years back. And the only time that I seen that economic development made money, when we went into agreement with CF. I think that was the only revenues y'all collected when from the sale tax of the money. Out the $4 million AEC made agreement, I think it was 5%.
They get some money from those pilot agreements.
That's right. That's the only time that you made money on that. That was the only one I knew. I don't know any other one.
Well, there are two pilot agreements in there that generate some money for AEDC, both of those, in addition to the sales tax, what you're talking about.
Right. So, I mean, it is a way they can generate money, but once again, we have to agree on that from a council point of view, if they're going to be self-sufficient based on what they're going to bring in here. And I mean, that means, once again, it's still coming from us.
Right.
So, either way you look at it, they will not survive unless we agree to give them some type of money from some way. So, I mean, I'm all for the discussion, but bottom line is, gentlemen and ladies, it's going to come from us.
That's it.
Well, and I'm certainly, my comment in this will be, I'm certainly not willing to cede to industry control over economic development. I believe that the citizens of this parish deserve for us to be the supporting organization so that we can have the kind of presentations we saw here tonight so that the industry understands that they have to work with local government and that they have to be transparent and they need to do so initially to the board of Ascension Economic Development Corporation. I would certainly not be supportive of any change in the way we fund them. Anyone else have any comment they want to make? Then we will move right along. We had a motion and a second, or have we? I'm lost now as whether or not we took a vote.
Made a motion and a second.
We had a motion and a second. Do we have any objection to the contract with Ascension Economic Development Corporation? Hearing none, that motion passes and that check needs to be signed. Okay. All right, item number 8, a renewal of the professional services agreement with Sky High Aviation for aerial imaging of the parish. This is an EMPG grant project, and Rick is here to present on it. Thank you so much, Rick.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, we executed and entered into this contract about 3 years ago. It's already been funded, already paid for. We do have a remaining balance of aviation block hours. The purpose is to get aviation or aircraft into the air should we need it during a disaster.
Second. Motion by Councilman Johnson, second by a whole cadre of folks. I'll give it to Todd Lambert. And do we have any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 9, renewal of the professional services agreement with Aviation Specialist, Inc. for aerial imaging of the parish. This is also an EMPG grant project. Rick?
And again, we spread it out across two companies to ensure that we have
So
the
moved.
availability.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Oliver Joseph, second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item number 10, to amend the contract with Curtis Environmental for sewer testing to add required testing for hidden forms for an additional $600. New, not to exceed amount, $9,100. Mr. William Daniel.
$600. I move to
Second.
approve.
Yeah.
I have a
Second.
motion by Mr. Bill Dawson, a second by Councilman Joseph. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 11, amendment to the contract with Curtis Environmental for EPA required analysis for portable water samples for parish utilities of Ascension to increase the amount of the contract by $160.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Dawson, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 12, change order number 2, re-roofing of the Ascension Parish East and West Bank courthouses to add the north end of the roof of the West Bank courthouse that was left out of the original contract. Roof is leaking on the north side and causing water damage that, if left unattended, will cause further damage. Change order adds an additional $49,440 to the contract price. Total contract with the change order is $791,640, and Ms. Johnson is here to present.
Good evening. Thank you, Committee Chairwoman. This is a section adjacent to the roof on the Clerk of Court on the West Bank. I apologize for the long description. I thought that was kind of for your consumption, not to go on the agenda item. But as we did a walkthrough early on in the project after one of our rain events, we were told about an older wall where the water was coming down through, and we planned to add it into the next roofing cycle, but it just didn't make sense, given we have a contractor already mobilized and on there. We had the funding available in the budget.
Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any questions of Ms. Johnson? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I need to mention at this point and ask for permission. I failed to put on the agenda the Human Resources report of the SSA priority recommendations. Toledo gives a report that's going to be added in our going forward as a standing item on our agenda. But does anyone have any objection after item number 13 of hearing an additional item number 14, which would be Toledo's report? Thank you very much, and I assure you, gentlemen, that will be going forward a standing item on the agenda. Item number 13, monthly contracts report. Ms. Sandra Pereira.
Good evening. You have before you a list of all the new contracts and renewals for the month of February.
Gentlemen, if you'll review those, if you have any questions, now is your opportunity to ask. Hearing no questions, we thank you, Ms. Sandra.
Thank you.
For being with us tonight. This time I'll invite Ms. Toledo to come up and present her report on the SSA priority recommendations. You all have in front of you a handout. This handout lists each of the recommended recommendations by SSA, and Toledo's going to elaborate on her efforts to accomplish those that refer to human resources. Toledo, thank you for being here, and thank you for waiting.
Thank you, Councilman. I separated the priority recommendations into 7 sections that I kind of felt really applied to Human Resources Department. There were 11 main recommendations coming from SSA. As to the reorganization and stabilization of parish government, as you know, the organizational chart is still in progress and is under the direction of the parish president at this this point in time. We also had the classification plan that was recently passed by the council in the last month, so thank you for that. Regarding the development of a performance management system and the revision of our personnel policies, we have established a personnel manual review committee. Our next meeting is actually on the 28th of this month, and it will address a variety of HR standards such as performance management systems, compensation, planning, attendance, succession planning, the HR review board. So many of the typical factors that you would find, we're really going to address those areas because, as you well know, the personnel manual has been somewhat of a hodgepodge of documents that we've created, and so we really want to address how it's written, provide some clarity to the employees and their leaders so that they can actually perform their jobs well. The manual is also needed to assist auxiliary departments such as the DA's office and the fire department in understanding what areas of the personnel manual that they should pay more attention to, as they're not required to focus in on many of our policies and procedures, but there are certain standards such as FMLA and ADA that they must abide by, and so it just helps them understand what areas that they should be implementing within their particular departments. When we're thinking about revising personnel policies, one of the areas that that SSA didn't necessarily mention, but is important, is our safety manual as well. So the safety committee has been established. An introductory meeting will be held soon. The primary document has been created and will be presented at those meetings so that they can be discussed and vetted within the committee. And it will include disciplinary actions for safety violations. I believe that was one of your concerns when we started talking about the GPS policy and a few other things. So that document will be able to address what those disciplinary actions will be for employees and leaders. The next section is improving productivity through mandatory leadership and supervisory skills training. I think it's really important for us to really get the personnel manual written well and understood, because there's still points in time where a leader will come to me and still have questions about certain things such as job postings, promotions, salary rate practices, interview guidelines. Some of those things should be at least indicated, not necessarily the administrative process that it takes, but at least indicated within those manuals so it's clear to the leaders and also clear to the employees. We are in the process of kind of looking at companies to host an internal leadership summit and to provide supervisory skills trainings. We have a training committee that has been established. We will be having an introductory meeting held soon. We'll discuss the Ascension University, which is an internal training program for employees and leaders. And now with the title classification approved by the parish, and after the job descriptions have been distributed, the committee will now have a basis to look at the training necessary for each of these roles. And although not part of the bigger picture for the parish, the HR department has established certain trainings as well. So I wanted to kind of add that in so that you know what's happening within our department particularly, instead of just throughout the parish. Our new hire orientation was recently approved. It's a beautiful document. It goes through the personnel manual as it's currently written, safety, customer service, and benefits. We anticipate that classes will begin in March. We now have monthly health and financial presentations for employees. We consider that part of employee training. We do have Thursday HR staff meetings where we provide support and encouragement and direction for our HR team members. We have ongoing training for our team members, such as SHRM recertification, I-9 training, safety recertification for our safety manager, and we even have programs that are set up for our hourly employee to gain the skills and the basic skills within HR so that that person can grow and progress through human resources as well. Number 4 is ensuring that all employees meet the minimum qualifications for positions. That's actually currently being implemented by our HR generalists. Once the posting date has expired, applications are reviewed for qualifications and tenure, and only qualified applicants are made available for review by the interviewing leaders. And since the rate scale, again, was recently approved by the council, HR is now working on establishing a compensation or a starting rate plan for new employees. And so that just gives some guidance to the hiring manager about where within our new compensation plan a new employee should come in, especially those employees with 5 years of experience, 10, 20, just to help them create a plan that'll offer a competitive wage. Okay. Of course, number 5, modernize parish information technology. We are scheduled to begin with the ERP program in October. Number 6, establish stronger communication outreach. The executive staff meetings are held consistently on Mondays. Again, Human Resources has staff meetings every Thursday, and they're consistently held. We have our monthly newsletter with Employee of the Month for administrative and field employees. That's active and actually successful. The employees really look forward to see who was nominated and how we can celebrate those particular employees. President Matassa has even volunteered to take them out for lunch every quarter at this point, at the very least, to make sure that they know that their efforts have been recognized. Employees continue to receive emails and posters regarding employee events, trainings, and other opportunities. I believe that's some of the information that you see as well within your emails. We make sure that they're posted in every area so that all employees, even those without access to emails, are receiving that information as well. We've opened up the first few minutes of our insurance committee meetings so that employees can be educated on and ask questions regarding their health, dental, and vision programs. And this is something that the employees haven't had an opportunity to do before. Before it was, here's open enrollment, get your plan, and if you have a problem, someone will help you at some point. Now they can actively ask questions and get instructions on how to best use their insurance. We've also broadened the employee health fair, where before it was a biometric screening program. Now we actually have vendors that will be there to help, once again, educate the employees on their financial, fitness, and nutritional background. Last but not least, number 7, continuously evaluate and upgrade parish standards, regulations, and operations. If you looked at the tracking metrics that SSA suggested that we implement, currently there's no way for us to track it, even if we use the old-fashioned Excel forms. It's just such a wealth of information that comes in and out of the department. We simply don't have the manpower to put that in place. What we anticipate is once we start the ERP process, that we'll be able to create more reports and get more information into the hands of the administration and the council. Within HR, SOP guidebooks are being established for each role. Again, this has somewhat been delayed as well due to manpower issues. We don't really have enough staff to focus on special projects when everything's a special project right now, especially in human resources. One of the biggest things that we're doing right now is our HR compliance audit. We have files and documents in human resources from when the parish began. And so really taking that into account and finding ways to address those documents. We've been to training with the State Department to look at ways of either compiling and saving that information or scheduling them for destruction. And so that's a project that we've been doing since October, and it's still an ongoing project. Job descriptions are currently being reevaluated now that we have the new title plan that was passed by the council. So that will be submitted to the supervisors to be vetted as well. One of the things that I did add on, and I kind of put it in a different light, is we do have some staffing needs. I am, a lot of the programs that we're currently working on, it's things that are needed, things that should have been in place in my opinion, but they take away from the core elements of my current staff. I have 4 full-time employees working in HR and 2 part-time employees, and that's all we have. So as our staff is growing, human resource capabilities aren't, even with the inception and the expectations that the ERP would bring in. It's still a lot of paperwork, a lot of administration that we do and would be doing. So one of the requests is an HR coordinator to, again, support administrative functions, and a training and development manager to assist with training and development in all areas, including benefits and safety.
Thank you for that thorough report. I think that there may be some questions.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
You
OJ,
you go ahead first.
I don't have to go first.
Do you have any
No,
questions?
look, thank you for the information. It's the most I ever received since I've been here on your department. Okay? I mean, and it's overwhelming. Overwhelming me, I can tell you that much. Shit. So,
Thank you very much. Bill, Councilman Dawson.
Yeah, again, thank you, Toledo. I appreciate the thorough report. I had just a couple of questions, and maybe one is for the parish president. So I see the organization chart. Do we have a scheduled completion date on that?
On the flow chart,
Yeah.
I'll have it by next week.
Oh, next week? Okay.
Yeah. I just got to change a few titles around.
Okay, thank you. On the performance, Toledo performance and the compensation, so currently, is compensation related to performance?
It is not.
Thank you for being honest.
And well, that's what we are moving toward, a performance management plan that is connected to any merit increases that the employees well deserve.
And so what does the schedule on that look like as far as getting those things tied together?
Well, the manual review committee meets on the 28th, and that'll be actually one of the topics of discussion. And so
Did I hear a date? I didn't hear a date.
You didn't hear a date. I don't want to dedicate anything because, this is going to be a hot topic, and I'm sure amongst, the council, definitely with President Matassa about really finding a program because there's many performance management systems out there. And then we also have to find one that works well with our ERP system because everything is flowing electronically. So what works well for the parish? My ideas are one thing, but based upon the culture, the parish president may have a different idea. Our committee members may have a different idea as well. So I don't want to necessarily dedicate, but my target is July.
Okay. Well, I would just recommend this, that if it's going to be a long time to get software or these other things, that maybe we do something like on a piece of paper and a pencil.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So I still want to make sure that we consider the fact that this will be implemented into our ERP system. So whatever paper document that we choose, can we translate that into the new ERP system?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this side of the aisle? Mr. Satterley?
Yeah, actually, I think, Bill, you asked about this org chart in progress and under the direction of the parish president?
Yeah, he said next week.
What, next week? I would just like to say that's very, very important, and borrowing from the words of one of my colleagues that saw fit to text me this week, stole my thunder. This is vital that we get this ASAP.
On this side, gentlemen, Mr. Kluwat.
Yes, Liz, thank you very much. Given the major change that all this is, well, I guess I'm a little remiss that SSA did not cover safety, and I'm glad you did. Because the first thing you want to do is, you definitely don't want anybody hurt. You want everybody knowing the expectations of the company, and the last thing you want to do is bring somebody and discipline them for safety.
Correct.
All right, so I think you're saying July. I'm saying maybe next July, because like a year out, easy. Because I think one of the most important things you got is mandatory leadership and supervisory skills training. You need to develop your people in your positions. We've worked through the chart to see what are the expectations of each position. I think that there's some area that needs to be covered under training of the people in leadership, and training them on this program and the expectations. And then after they're trained, it needs to be passed down to the lowest employee, what the expectations are. They have to be given some time to work within those expectations before they're judged and their performance reviews in front of them. So I just think the total compensation of the term, and you use the term culture, we do that a lot in government, the culture, but it's a business, so let's look at it from business. And the fact, I appreciate everything you're doing, and I just think you got a little, I would not, July ain't but a couple months off.
I'm going to challenge that.
I appreciate that, and I don't have a problem with what Mr. Dawson said. Go ahead and use paper. I can furnish you with a couple forms if you need them, because when you get these supervisory folks trained, and they're actually doing performance evaluations on the people below them. Whatever program you got is going to be limited to the box they can check or the number they can grade them on. So it's going to take a lot in the comment section, you know, and it's going to take a lot of work. I do believe your staff, I believe somebody else is going to probably work on looking what the numbers of your staff is, but on your staff, you definitely need somebody, a training coordinator. Got to have that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lawler.
I see, there we go. I see a lot of wonderful things on here that have been talked about for a while now are getting put into motion. First of all, thank you. This is exciting to see. I think this is great for the employees of the parish, as was alluded to before. When people have some evaluation, it's not about beating people down. It's about showing where improvement can be made and giving people opportunities in the future. And, you know, for the university, I think is a great thing that we're going to do for the parish. It's going to give people that currently work for the parish the opportunity to expand, maybe to have some goals that they didn't think were possible for them, that they're going to have new opportunities and goals that they can work towards and better positions that they may feel that they weren't qualified for before, but we're going to give them that opportunity to get qualified and to get those positions. I do have some questions about the staffing aspect of it. And Gwen, maybe you can help answer some of these. We have in the budget 8 employees for human resources. We have 2.5 senior project managers. We seem to be missing 2 employees for human resources.
So we do have a safety manager that I didn't consider in because he's not part of that primary core function of human resources, and we have a courier that's within the department.
Okay, that's 1.5 people according to the budgeting. We don't have a benefits administrator anymore, and we've eliminated that was eliminated 2 years ago. We've just eliminated a human resources specialist, which concerns me because this is human resources.
I think the budget manual, the way it's currently designed, what came prior to the title and classification plan. So my senior project managers, their titles have changed. I now have an assistant director, 2 benefits managers. One is primary, the other is part-time, who only works on retirement benefits.
Okay, great. So, and we can get some of this cleared up. I know we have a subcommittee that's going to look into all of this. We've recently got the information on that. Hopefully we can clear a lot of this up, because we have a tremendous amount of senior project managers all through the parish. And I think once we get them better named and we have a better idea of who they are, what they're doing, that'll allow everybody, you know, I guess a little more calm and a good fuzzy feeling about what we have people doing here in the parish. But as far as your staffing needs go, let us, you know, is this exactly what you need, the training and organizational development manager and HR coordinator?
Correct.
Okay. Have we taken any steps, advertised for any of that?
The budget hasn't been approved for that.
Okay. Well, I think that's something that we need to look into. Hopefully by next finance committee we can do that, because I think those are very important positions. But everything on here is a great step forward. Like OJ said, we haven't had this before. This is a tremendous amount of information, a lot to digest, but you're moving in a fantastic direction. Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Mr. Cagnolotti?
Just ditto. Great presentation, gave us a lot of great information, and I think it's helping us to move things forward. I'll also echo Randy's comments. The emphasis on safety is very important. We want everybody to go home from work as they came, if not better. Thank you.
I want to get in the weeds just a little bit, if you don't mind, Talita. The Blue Book is passed by this council as an ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So aren't performance evaluations required every year according to the Blue Book?
They are, but as you well know, and SSA has previously stated, a lot of the policies that are in the Blue Book weren't necessarily followed, for lack of better words. And I don't think it's by any ill will. It's just the skills that were needed to make sure that the up-and-coming supervisors were aware of how to complete the documents, and that they actually made sense to the employees. Again, as Bill mentioned, they weren't connected to anything. And so what's the value in a form when it's just completed and placed into a folder? You know, so I think they just got away from it, especially with all the additional projects that HR and the other departments were required to complete.
So when was the last time that performance evaluations were routinely submitted in Ascension Parish?
I'm not aware. I
So
don't
how
have that
many
information.
How many performance evaluations have been done in the first quarter of this year in order to accommodate the Blue Book?
We haven't completed any, and with us working on the new performance management system, I wanted it to be tied to the merit program, and I didn't want to waste the time of the leaders and the supervisors of completing a document early in the year and submitting the same or similar document later in the year for merit reasons.
That's all good explanations and plausible. My challenge with all this is that when this council or this finance committee moves on to the council and the council passes a law, okay, then it makes sense to me that that should be complied with, irregardless of what begins to happen in a department. If it cannot be complied with, then they need to come back and say, we can't comply with this. Does not need to be just, well, we just decided we won't do it. I have been saying from ever since I've been on this council, maybe not as publicly as I should, but I believe there is an incredible need in this parish and probably in others. I'm certainly not convicting this parish alone. But for some kind of compliance officer, someone who is going to make sure that when these laws are passed, that they are either followed or that there is some notification that they're not being followed. Because quite frankly, we remain ignorant. We do not know when the law is being followed and when it is not. I have always assumed, which, you know, everybody's always said what that means, but I've always assumed that whatever law we passed got followed. And that if you didn't, somebody would bring it to our attention that it was not being followed. So I would ask the administration to consider that you might bring to the council a position, call it a compliance officer. I mean, we certainly have it in the medical world. We have it in the industrial world, that when laws and rules are implemented, that those things get followed and nothing just kind of falls by the wayside because somebody didn't have time. Okay. The most critical one being, in my judgment, these performance appraisals. Because this is not only important to us and to our team, but it's the law of the parish of Ascension. So I would like to see us move forward on that. I think we probably need to have further discussion about it. But does anybody else have anything they want to add in light of my comment? Mr. Satterley.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Talita Terry just asked about the Blue Book and its requirement for yearly evaluations, which you have responded don't always happen. Does the Blue Book say who is supposed to do the evaluations? Does it use the word immediate supervisor or anything like that? And what is your view of that?
Without it being in front of me, I wouldn't be able to state exactly what it says, but we are currently in a new year, and so we do have time to complete those documents. It would be under the direction of an immediate supervisor with the review of the department head.
Okay, so immediate supervisor would perform the review, and then that review would go up to a department head and/or higher.
Correct.
I sure hope that's the case. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Talita, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate the administration's work with you, and we don't mean to be judgmental here. We're just having to exercise our responsibility here.
Of course.
So we appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, on to the regular finance reports. Item number 14, the sales and use tax report. Ms. Gwen LeBlanc.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You have before you your regular sales and use tax report. This is for the collections for the month of January based on December sales. This would be our first report for 2018. Overall, we experienced a decrease from 2017 in all sectors except retail. And our budget comparisons, on the other hand, all of our three sales tax districts collections are over budget. So kind of a good news, bad news. And then, of course, on page 2, you have your charts. You can see where retail was a little bit higher in 18 than 17, and the others, 3 sectors were not. And the pie chart shows that this is just using the 1 cent one once again, and it's just a depiction of, to show you where our sales taxes are being collected. So you can see the petrochemical industry has come up to 50%, retail 35%, motor vehicles 10%, and business to business 5%. And the last page is just a historical depiction of all of the 3 sales tax districts. You can see we're just starting 2018. If you have any questions, I would be glad to answer.
Mr. Dawson.
Thank you. Gwen, I probably asked you this already, but I apologize if I did. The petrochem, the sales tax that you have attributed to petrochem, how's that tagged? Does that have like the specific company that it comes from, or?
In the pie chart, like usually?
Well, so you've got, in this bar chart, you've got petrochem industry, 1.14 million for 2018. I'm just wondering, how's that captured? Is it captured by company? Is there some way that you could go in there and pull out a specific company? Is what I'm asking.
Yes, our sales tax authority could. They're the ones that produce a couple of these charts anyway. And it's the petrochemical industry and their major suppliers. In other words, they're trying to capture the major suppliers who also have most of their business with the petrochemical industry.
So kind of what I was curious about, and this came up earlier, for example, the CF expansion, is there any way to go back and see just how much sales tax that generated for the parish?
Yes, but unlike ad valorem taxes, sales taxes are protected by law, that you can't divulge a particular business and say what their sales tax collections are.
Pesky laws.
I beg your pardon?
I'm joking. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move along. Thank you, Ms. Gwen. To the bid items, Ms. Jones. Item number 15, to accept the lowest responsive bid.
Good evening, I'm sorry.
Good evening.
On February 14, 2018, the purchasing department received 4 bids for type HP high performance coal mix. After review, the purchasing department and DPW recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Coastal Bridge Company and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
So moved, Madam
I have a
Chairman.
motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, a second by Councilman Satterley. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On February 6, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 2 bids for the supply and delivery of liquid CL2 for water treatment. After review, the Purchasing Department and Public Utilities recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by DPC Enterprises and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson, second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On February 1st, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 5 bids for Waterman C-20 canal gate valves. After review, the Purchasing Department and DPW recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Quality Site Work and Water Technology Resources, and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Cagnalotti. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On February 14, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 2 bids for precast reinforced box culverts. After review, the Purchasing Department and DPW recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Capital Concrete Products and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
Motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert,
Second.
second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On February 15, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 1 bid for CRS-2 asphalt emulsion. After review, the Purchasing Department and DPW recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid from Asphalt Products Unlimited and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this material.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, a second by Councilman John Cagnalotti. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. And it's not 10 o'clock, and we are going to take the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn, and we will take a 5-minute recess before we begin the drainage meeting. Motion by Councilman Cagnalotti to adjourn. Second by Councilman Lawler. So moved. We are adjourned. See you in 5.